Well, do you guys know that today is a snappy day? And let me tell you why, because a lot of you may not realize this, but today is a snappy day because today I wore my lucky socks. Now, I want you to know that these are my lucky socks, and I could almost preach an entire sermon on where these socks have been, but I must say that today I decided to wear these because I knew that today was special. Now, I'm going to need your help because if all of you can realize, I just lost all my support back here, so I'm going to need to know that you guys are with me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you guys, are you with me? And when I ask you that, what I want you to do is to put your hand in the air, raise it up with a firm and powerful voice, reply back to me, we are with you. So since it's the graduating class, let's begin with you. Are you with me? That was good. I think we could do a little bit louder than that. Let's go over here to this section right here. It's good and packed and firm. Here we go. Are you with me?
We are with you.
Excellent. I was wondering now if this side could do a little bit better. Are you with me?
We are with you.
That's what I'm talking about. Now, friends, colleagues, people in the balcony, lend me your ears. Are you with me?
We are with you.
Oh, it's good to know. Now, for those of you that are wondering how I have relation with the class of 2004, let me go back in time and explain to you the last time that I was able to be with them. At the beginning of every school year, they have a school campout. What happens on the school campout is they take all the students of Sacramento Adventist Academy onto a campout so they can be able to get to know each other. Now, this last year, what they did was they decided to go to Yosemite, and Mrs. White, the principal, approached me and said, Brian, would you like to come in and would you like to give several talks over the course of this campout? I thought about it, and I said, yeah, I'd really like to do that. But I asked her, Mrs. White, would it be okay if I come? Can I be a motivational speaker? And she was like, I guess, sure, if you want to. So I was excited. I got all my stuff prepared. I had all my speeches outlined, and I've seen videos. I knew what was supposed to happen. I got up there in front. We were out of Yosemite. I got up there, and I was ready to go, and I said, all right, boys and girls, today we're going to be setting some goals, and we're going to be having a good attitude, and we're not going to give up. And I was up there, and I had all my lines went out, and I was ready to go. And as I got done, I remember, after getting done with my first talk, I was like, all right, got that one done. I had a couple more to go, and I went out, and I went to set up my tent. And as I was setting up my tent, I put it up, and I looked, and as anyone that's ever gone to Yosemite knows, that in Yosemite, they have these bins at the campground, these big metal boxes that say, please put your food in here, because if you don't, the bears will come. Now, it had been a long day. I had flown up from LA, then taken the bus with the students all the way down to Yosemite, giving my first talk. I was very tired, and I looked at this box. It was probably no more than about 25 feet away from me. And I looked at it, and I knew what it said, and I knew the consequences, and I was like, box, why must you be so far away? I was so tired, and I just said, and as I looked at it, I began to think, and I said, aha, I know. I was like, I'm betting that the other students here, that they're not going to put their food in that box. And I'm also betting that the other students probably have way better food than I do. I knew that all I had was a couple of power bars and a bag of trail mix. So I figured, I bet these other guys are going to have like Twix and Snickers and cookies and crackers. And I said, well, I think my chances are fairly good. So I got into my tent. I didn't have a pillow, so I used my backpack as my pillow, and I went to sleep. Now, I must let you know that I'm an extremely heavy sleeper. Usually I'm the one that wakes up after the shaving cream has been applied, the pictures have been taken and posted on the internet, and everyone's sitting around talking about what happened. That's when I wake up, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Did something just happen? So I'm an extremely deep sleeper, and all of a sudden, as I'm sleeping in this tent, I hear someone or something eating inside my tent, and I feel my backpack moving underneath my head. So here I am. All of a sudden, I'm like, and I remembered very well that when I went to sleep, I was alone in the tent, and as far as I can remember, I didn't invite anyone over for snacks. And so here I am. I wake up and I sit up, and now I realize something is inside my tent, and it's pitch black, and I can't see anything. So my heart's going. And I'm just like, oh, man, what's going on? So I'm reaching around, and I'm looking, and I'm trying to be quiet because I'm like, I don't know what it is that's in here. And I'm reaching around, and I find my flashlight. And I try to move real slowly because I had no idea what was in there. And I turn it on, and I look in the corner, and there sitting next to my backpack was like the raccoon of death. This guy like sat up with his claws, and his mouth was all foamy, his eyes red, and he was like, rah! Okay, well, maybe not. Maybe he wasn't the raccoon of death, but he was the biggest raccoon I've ever seen. And here he is, so this raccoon is sitting there, and he's just looking at me, and I know what he's probably thinking. He's like, if you don't turn that flashlight off, there's a good chance I'm going to go blind. But all I can think about is as I'm looking at this raccoon, we're just staring at each other, I'm thinking, any second now, I know this guy is going to go for my neck. Like, I was just waiting. I ain't saying it's like, Wee! And the next day I'd have to give a talk and be like, kids, it's important to pay attention to directions, because if you don't, you have a raccoon hanging from your neck. So here I am. Finally, I was like, I got to come up with a way to get him out of here. And I've seen The Crocodile Hunter. I know how to handle wild animals. So here I am in this tent. I don't know what time it is. It's dark except for my flashlight. And I come up with this great plan. I was like, all right, I thought this out. I'm going to throw my sweatshirt at him. And so I get my sweatshirt, and I look, and I say, here we go, raccoon. And I throw it at him. Sure enough, direct hit, right on top of the raccoon. I was like, there we go. And it worked. He began to walk out of my tent, but with my sweatshirt. So now I'm like, oh, I'm going to be cold. And I was like, raccoon, why must you always win? What is going on here? So this raccoon, somehow it ended up falling off. The raccoon left, and here I am in the tent, now alone, realizing that I'm still alive. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm alive. And I said, that raccoon's probably going to go around, and he might not take off. And I said, being the adult, I probably should go and warn the others. And I was like, that's probably exactly what I need to do. And I was like, you know what? And I'm going to do that right after I take a quick nap. And the next thing I know, I woke up in the morning. Everyone else had stories about how the raccoon had come and visited them. And it was just one of those crazy things. And the reason I tell that story is because 2004 will be a year that you guys will remember. It will be a year with events and memories and things that stand out in your mind that you will never forget. Some of the main things that were covered on TV that we saw a lot of this last year. California got a new governor. Saddam Hussein was captured. We had a national wardrobe malfunction at the Super Bowl. Rachel got back together with Ross. American Idol announced names like Fantasia, Deanna DeGarmo, and yes, oh yes, William Hung. Extreme makeovers are now everywhere, including people, cars, and houses. And names such as Bill, Kwame, and the infamous Omarosa, and the phrase "you're fired" will ever stand out in our minds. You see, these are all things that have happened over this last year that people will remember. And you know what's funny is I truly believe that in the future, looking back, many people will come back to this day, to this very room, to this class, and they will look at it and be amazed at how such amazing people that went out and changed the world came from a single place, at a single time, from a single class. And I know what you're thinking, okay, it's one of those speeches. It's going to be one like, graduating class, the world is your oyster. Take forth the pearl and be happy. No. I really wanted to know what it was that you guys were good. I just wanted to come up here and say, graduating class, you guys are good. Yeah, good job. Go out there, do what you can. Woohoo. So, I must say I was a little bit sneaky, and I did a little Mission Impossible assignment. I don't know if you guys knew this, but I sent over an assignment to SAA for you guys to fill out several weeks ago. I don't think you guys knew it was me, and I see the looks now, they're like, uh-oh, and you should be. But let me read to you, for everyone else in the audience, let me explain to you what I put on this assignment. On the piece of paper was every person's name in their class. Next to each person's name was a line so that they could be able to write something next to it. And here's the instructions that I wrote on the paper. News headlines are known for having catchy phrases that grab the reader's attention. Imagine you are 25 years in the future, and you've been assigned to write a feature story about each of your classmates and their most significant accomplishment. Next to each name, write a creative headline describing what you think their greatest accomplishment will be in the next 25 years. Now, we had some excellent ones that came back in, but what I tried to do was to narrow it down to pick the best one that represented the whole of what a majority of the people were saying. I would pick the best headline, and so what I would like to do now is to read the headlines for the class of 2004. You guys ready for this? I'm getting a little worried in the front seat. Top engineer Gregory Arnold wins back-to-back Nobel Prizes. Christian Auer wins Fashion Designer of the Year. Research shows that Brian Benzo is the coolest person on the planet. David Bissinger's breakthrough book on psychology tops the bestseller list. Kings, led by Briz, win the series. I was pretty happy about that one. I was like, it's about time. Hey, so if you need any help, let me know. I'll help you out. Top Stanford doctor Travis Brown discovers the cure for AIDS, cancer, and cooties. Christian Cardenius, the skateboard tycoon, is first to rail slide down the Golden Gate Bridge. Considered the next Mother Teresa, Erin Falafala single-handedly, is that right? Did I say that wrong? How do you say it? Falafua. Okay, let me go back. Considered the next Mother Teresa, Erin Falafua, single-handedly rescues 318 children from burning building. Harvard University biology professor Jacqueline Frank beats the odds and becomes Queen of England. Marissa Fridley, considered to be the next Billy Graham, becomes pastor of world's largest church. Former Miss Universe Ashley Fujikawa, credited for excellent work as a pediatrician. Brandon Granger takes the gold at the Winter X Games and wins the Best Punk Band of the Century at the MTV Awards. Nicole Harms becomes richest orthodontist in California after inventing new 6-month braces plan. Move over Pavarotti, America loves Joshua Heineman. Bass trombonist Rudy Hohen deemed sexiest man alive by People magazine. Joseph Kim is named the first person to be asleep for an entire month. It's excellent. Former BMX champion at X Games, Chris LaFontaine, is now the king of NASCAR. Joseph Jolicious Lee becomes the next American Idol champion. Top home designer Stephanie Lupuluscu opens business in Romania. Comedian of the Year, Mimi Maletic designs new type of sunglasses. Heather Michaels joins the cast of Saturday Night Live, voted funniest woman alive. Rachel Miller, America's top architect, designs tallest structure in history. Special Agent Tyler Newton, a.k.a. top lawyer, becomes the Georgia state senator. Matthew Nozaki receives the Medal of Honor for his work in Iraq, nominated to become the Secretary of Defense. Caleb Rasmussen discovers the new theory about the speed of light. In fact, Caleb discovers the theory of everything. Michael Salisbury, named America's hottest orthopedic surgeon, develops breakthrough surgical technique. Former Heisman Trophy winner Cody Schneidelman, voted best physical... Did I say that wrong again? Come on. All right, I just say Cody. Former Heisman Trophy winner Cody, voted best physical therapist in the NBA. Carissa Lynn Smith, world's greatest model, starts nationwide fashion craze. Angela Spurgeon, commended for excellent teaching methods by the president, asked to teach reading to children around the world. Air Force pilot Brian Takamoto receives presidential recognition for superior rescue tactics. Brandon Tim, elected most handsome man to ever win the PGA Tour. Georgiana Tutu becomes richest woman in the world while preparing to release new line of clothing in the fall. Jennifer Wilcox-Young sets record as a single work of her art sells for $50 billion. And finally, ER doctor Kelly Zaletti shocks all by saving an unsavable life, wins Surgeon of the Year award. You see, class of 2004, when I talked to you before, I gave you several different things. We talked about goal setting, we talked about attitude, we talked about never giving up, getting the power on your side. We talked a bunch of different things. And all of those things I want you to know are important. But today, knowing that this might be the last time that I see you guys as a group together, I sat down, and as I prepared my speech, I said, what is the most important thing that I need to be telling these guys today? And I sat down, and I think as I began to write out notes, I had like 7 or 8 pages of things that I was like, they got to know this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and I had all these things. And what I did was I began to look at it, and I said, now what is the most important? What do they really need to know? And I narrowed it down to 3 things that I want you guys to know today as you go out from this building. And these would be the same 3 things. If a doctor had come to me before I was get up to take, he said, Brian, you're not going to make it. As soon as you're done talking, that'll be the end for you. I want you to know that these would be the 3 things that I would tell you guys. There's 3 things that I think are extremely important that I want you guys to know. And the first one is to know that you have been called by God. You see, I didn't really realize this until last year when I was finishing up my master's degree at La Sierra University. One of the students at the school had written a play about the life of Jesus, and he had broken it up. It was kind of like a mini-series to where we had a different talk it was like 5 weeks in a row leading up to Easter. And it was cool because in this play, he wrote it to be a kind of a modern, so it would be like what would be happening if everything had happened today. So there was TV cameras, things like that. It was an excellent play. And I remember, I think it was the second one, that as I was there and I'm watching, I'm sitting in the audience, and all of a sudden, a group of guys, like this is college, you got to remember this is college, a group of guys get up from out of the seats in the church, and they just get up and they run up onto the stage, and they just stand there. They're not doing anything. And I don't know if you guys have heard of these things called flash mobs. They're starting to get a little more popular. It's a group of people on the internet. They come together, and they say, okay, we're going to go to XYZ coffee shop on XYZ day, and what we're going to do is at 2:02, everyone who's there that knows about this, without saying anything, just get there and everyone do the river dance. So sure enough, at this coffee shop, there'll be no one knows who knows about it, and all of a sudden, at 2:02, people will just be like, dun, 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 dun. You know, they'll start doing the river dance, and no one will know what's going on, and then no one talks, and they just go, and then that's it. And then they talk about it later on and say, oh, yeah, that was so funny, ha, ha, ha. But I was thinking, oh, man, I see these guys run up onto the stage, and all I can think is, oh, why didn't someone tell me? I totally would have done that. Like, I thought this was not necessarily a joke, but it was something that they were doing. And as I'm looking out at these guys on the stage, which were these were guys from the college, just normal guys. They weren't dressed up. They were just wearing clothes. There was a surfer guy, and there was a guy with a big fro, and a guy with a huge beard. And they were just all kind of, the play was going on, and they all just came up, and they were like standing on the side, just in this small little circle. And I'm like, man, what's going on? I was like, you know, if they'd let me know, we could have had 13 people, because right there they only have 12. And for the first time, I understood. For some reason, I'd always thought the disciples were somehow these, as much as we know they were fishermen and things like that, I'd always thought that they had some special qualities that made them stand out, to where Jesus was like, all right, you guys come with me. And I know that even though the Bible really doesn't say that, for some reason in my mind, I'd always thought that these were just special and magical people. And what I want to say to you guys today, and I didn't realize that then, is these guys a lot of them were fishermen. What does that mean? Well, fishermen are chilling in a boat. And there's a good chance that there's not going to be any ladies around, so you can bet that the first 2 things to go are proper use of language and bathing. So here you go. You've got these fishermen in the boat. That Jesus comes up. They're good at fishing. And he walks up to them, and he looks at them, and he says, now come follow me, and I'll show you how to catch men. I'm telling you, he took what skills they had. I just read the list of skills that you guys have. This isn't me saying what you're good at. This is the people that know you're best. This is the class saying, this is what you're good at. These are the news headlines that you're going to make. Jesus took what the fishermen had, and he multiplied it. Know that Jesus has called you, and he will take what you have, and he will multiply it. The second point I have for you today, I got to go to my notes, is as you guys go, we see big things. These news headlines are huge, enormous, amazing, life-changing. They'll change the country and change the world. I want you to know that I believe you guys can do this. But I also want you to know point number 2, which is there are no shortcuts. So work hard and don't be afraid to fail. I learned this from a guy named Rafe, who actually he's a 5th grade teacher who ended up winning the Disney's Teacher of the Year award several years back. He wrote this book, and I was reading it, and his whole purpose, his whole structure of his class is he looks at these 5th grade kids every day, and he tells them one message. He says, if you want to go far, you're going to have to work hard. Again, I didn't really understand this principle until last year I was able to hike the Grand Canyon. Now, for any of you that have ever been to the Grand Canyon, it's definitely grand. I mean, I don't know the elevation, but it's big. And it's a fairly big hike. Well, a couple friends of mine, and we decided we were going to go and hike from the top to the bottom and back up in one day. Now, for any of you that have been to the Grand Canyon, this is what's great, is there are signs all the way down on the trail that say, do not hike this in one day. And so here we are, we're getting ready to go, and we swing by the ranger station just to make sure that we're going down the right trail. And we tell him, yeah, we're going to do this in one day. And he looks at us and he's like, do you guys realize that 90% of the people who get helicoptered out of the Grand Canyon are between the ages of 18 and 25. And we were like, we're between the ages of 18 and 25. And we're like, and then all we could think of, we're like, we're going in a helicopter. And then he told us it was like $3,000, and you had to pay right there and give him your credit cards. And we were like, oh, well, we'll just get some donkeys. But it ended up we couldn't even afford donkeys, so we had to walk. So here we are. We get ready to go. We're at the Grand Canyon. We're at the top, and here we go. We began to walk down. 2.5 hours to get to the bottom, and we're having a great time. We're laughing and joking and running and skipping. We had like a little Congo line, da, 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 hey. We're going all the way down this trail. We're feeding our extra food to birds and squirrels. We're like, hey, we're having a great time. We get down to the bottom, and if any of you have ever been to the Grand Canyon, you know that if you don't have a raft, there's only one way out. And that's right back up that huge trail you just came down and had so much fun. And what happened is for the next 5.5 hours, there we were, walking up. And it wasn't a lot of fun. And we went all the way back to the top. And what's crazy is I actually came back and did it again about a month and a half later. I don't know how I got talked into doing it. I really didn't want to do it the first time. And here I am doing it the second time. And we went down a lot later, and we actually had to hike from the bottom to the top. And we did it in 2 hours and 45 minutes. Not because we wanted to, but because it was getting dark and we didn't have any flashlights or jackets. We hadn't really come prepared. So here we are. It seriously was like doing the stair stepper on high for 2 hours and 45 minutes. Like, we didn't talk, we didn't smile, no one said anything. We just walked and walked and walked for 2 hours and 45 minutes. Now, the reason I tell you this story is this, because in life, there are 3 types of roads. There are flat roads, there are uphill roads, and there are downhill roads. And to get to places beyond where you are today, there is only one road that you can take, which means it's the uphill road. If things have been easy, if stuff isn't bad, hey, everything's all right, smooth, you're either on a flat road or a downhill road. And I'm telling you that to get to where these news clippings, to where these great things are going to happen, it's going to take being able to walk up an uphill road. Now, I lived in Fiji for a while as I was a student missionary out there, and I taught a class. And when I was out there, the place where I was at, we had no internet, no TV, no radio, and we had electricity 2 days of the week. So what happened is I'd have to find something else to do with my time because there wasn't a lot of other stuff to do. So after I got tired of climbing coconut trees and chopping down bamboo and going fishing, I had to look for something else to do. Well, there was a library at the school, and the door was actually locked, so this is crazy. I actually had to break into the library to be able to read books. Normally, before that, I would have had to break out of the library. Like the librarian would say, Brian, you stay in there, and she'd block the door, and I'd be going out the air vents, like, ha ha, you'll never get me now. But here I am in this library, and I begin to read. And for the first time in my life, I really found out how cool it is to read. And I'm reading through this business book, and it comes up, and it says the average millionaire entrepreneur has gone bankrupt 3.75 times. And I'm looking at it, it's about 4 times to go bankrupt, which means they try, risk it all, and lose it all 4 times. But on that 4th time, it's worth it all. And for the first time in my life, I looked at that in that book, and I said, you know what? I think I'm ready to fail. And suddenly, I didn't think it was so bad to fail anymore. And I want you guys to know that, to not be afraid to fail. Failure is something that happens to everyone. For an example, how many of you in the senior class, how many of you have ever gotten, say, a D or an F on a test? Be honest with me now. Come on. I could show you my Greek and Hebrew report cards, and that's basically all I got. But okay, so you guys see, there's quite a few of you. Now what I want you guys to do is look out in the audience. Everyone in the audience, be honest with me now. How many of you have ever gotten a D or an F any time in your schooling experience? Look at that. You see, failure happens to everyone. The only true failure is when you don't look beyond when you do something, if you give up. That's the only failure. You can fail and fail and fail. The Wright brothers, one of the Wright brothers wanted to give up after like 8 years of trying. Almost twice the time that you were in school, he was trying to make something fly. And he finally just turned and said, you know what, forget this. I give up. No one will ever fly. Well, luckily his brother talked him back into it. And now, you know of the Wright brothers. So lesson number 2, know that you have to work hard, there are no shortcuts, and not be afraid to fail. Finally, the third point I want to make today is to know that you are not alone. Dale Earnhardt, who some would consider to be probably the best race car driver of all time, number 3, I think that was his number, the man in black. Before he passed away in a car accident in the Daytona 500, he used to tell a story of his father. Dale said that where they grew up in a racing town, to where racing was everything. Racing was life. They would work during the week to make enough money to work on their cars at night. Then on the weekends, they would race. A lot of them would crash. And then they would start the process all over again of fixing their car, getting better parts to race again the next week. It was everything. They lived and breathed and ate racing. And he says that his father was a good racer, and he was in the professional class at the time. Now, this wasn't like NASCAR back then. He had a couple of sponsors, which means he had a good car, but he didn't have like an amazing car. Dale, on the other side, he was in like the minor league. He wasn't in the professional league. He was in the league right below it. What happened was at one of the professional races, they realized that several of the drivers weren't going to be able to make it. So the league went to the league below, and they said, we'll allow the top 4 racers that you have to come up and race in the professional class. Sure enough, Dale happened to be in one of those top 4, and he talks about this race where he was able to race with his father. Now, his father, again, being in a professional class, had a really fast car. And as the race began and was going, sure enough, Dale's father was in first place. In second place was another guy from the professional class, and in third place was a guy from the underclass that had come up, and in fourth place was Dale. Now, Dale says, as he was behind this guy, he was an extremely good driver, but he said that there was nothing he could do. This guy who was in front of him physically had a more powerful car. He said, it didn't matter how good of a driver I was. He said, my car did not have the power to be able to make it around him. There was nothing I could do to get in front of this car. But Dale says, the race got close to an end. It was almost done. He looked in his rearview mirror, and he saw his father coming up behind him, lapping him. He quickly moved up on the side of the track so his father could go by, and as he did, he noticed in his rearview mirror that his father had moved up behind him as well and was getting closer and closer. All of a sudden, Dale felt on the back of his car, and his car began to accelerate. He began to go, and he passed the guy in front of him as his father pushed his car in front of the car in front of him. When all said was done, Dale Earnhardt won third place. The reason I tell you this story is because there will come a time in your life, as you're going for these big things and going to make these things happen, that it will feel like you are doing everything right. You're giving 100%. You've done all the things that people say to do. You're going for it, and it feels like the finish line is getting further and further and further away. When you come to that time, and when you come to that point, to when you're going for these big dreams, and it just feels like nothing's working, I want you to know that at those moments, I want you to stop and look and find your father, because he's always been looking for you. In 1962, when Rick Hoyt was born, his umbilical cord became coiled around his neck and cut off oxygen to his brain. His parents, Dick and Judy Hoyt, were told that Rick would never walk or talk, and there would be no hope for their child's development. However, when Rick was 10 years old, a group of Tufts University engineers heard about Rick's story and built an interactive computer that would allow him to write out his thoughts using the slight head movements that he could manage. Rick's first words were, "Go Bruins." At the age of 13, Rick was finally admitted into a public school. 2 years later, he told his father he wanted to participate in a 5-mile benefit run for a local lacrosse player who had been paralyzed in an accident. His father, far from being a long-distance runner, agreed to push Rick in his wheelchair. They finished next to last, but they felt that they had achieved a triumph. That night, Rick began to type a message to his father. It read, "Dad, I don't feel handicapped when we're competing." And so began the story of Team Hoyt. Now, I had a video I wanted to show, but it ended up not working out. But let me try to explain to you. Team Hoyt then went on to begin to race, and they raced in thousands of races, going from just running races to now marathons to triathlons. And in this video, if I could show it, it would show this father who is now probably in his 60s, and his son who is now probably mid-30s, that is unable to move anything. He has slight movement in his arms, but nothing besides his face. He's not able to talk. All he can do is communicate through this computer that he can type messages on. That's the only way. And this father now takes him and goes in. They went from marathons to triathlons. And in this video, it shows them competing in the Ironman triathlon in Hawaii. What some people would argue as probably the most grueling race or triathlon in the world. It starts with 2.4 miles of swimming, which not only did he swim being 60 years old, but he has a strap around him with a raft behind with his son that he paddles all the way, the 2.4 miles, pulling his son through the water. Then when he gets done, he picks his son from the raft, and he begins to walk as there is a crowd of people just cheering for him as he takes him then to the bicycle. He has a specially built bike that allows him to sit in the front while his dad's behind pedaling. He straps him in, gets on a helmet, makes sure he has on sunblock, and they begin to ride the 114 miles that they will have to do for the second leg of the race. By the time they finish, when he gets on the bike, it's day. When they finish, it's pitch black. It's dark out. I have no idea what their time was on this race, but it's totally dark. So here he goes. He gets off now, and it's dark. He takes his son, again, carries the son to the chair that he has that he runs with him. He carries his son, puts him in there, straps him up, and begins to run now 26.2 miles, a complete marathon in the dark, pushing his son the whole way. And by far, the most amazing part of this video is at the finish line. Every time I see it, it gets me. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Because here, I have no idea what time it is. He starts at night. The typical marathon time is anywhere from, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, depending upon how tired you are. He's pushing his son, so you gotta remember it's gonna be a little bit slower. So who knows what time this is? I'm guessing it's well past midnight as he's coming in to finish this race. And all you see are these grandstands full of people that are lit. And as the father comes in, he begins to push. And you can just tell he's tired, but he's going for everything he's got. He's doing this sprint for the finish line. And his son, who has barely any movement in his hands, has had his hands up in the air like a champion. And as they're coming across, these grandstands are full, and everyone is on their feet, and they're clapping. And you see flash bulbs going off, cameras are going everywhere. And he gets to the end, and he crosses the race. He crosses the end line, and champagne bottles are going everywhere. People are running around him. It's this huge celebration. And it's weird because the first time I saw this, I was thinking to myself, you know what? I think a lot of people would look at this video, and they would see a father and a son finishing the triathlon. But every time I look at that video, all I see is the kingdom of heaven. I want you guys to know that God will always be there. In God's eyes, my best efforts to show what I've done, to say, look at my big house, look at my cars, look at these things that I've done, look at, I've done this and this and this and this. In God's eyes, it's nothing more than an ant looking at a skyscraper and being like, check me out, I got a couple of leaves down here. I got 10 leaves, and everyone else only has 2. In God's eyes, it doesn't matter. In God's eyes, what matters is you. And I want to let you know that to get to the finish line, if you believe in the Bible and what it has to say, then you believe that there's a finish line, a time that will come that will be the end. And you're either finish or you don't. And I want to let you know that as a motivational speaker, I can stand before you guys, and this is what I'll say. You guys can do it. But as a fellow believer in the gospel of Jesus Christ, I want to stand before you today and say you guys can do nothing. There's nothing you can do except for allow your Father to take you there. I was invited to a little get-together, and I don't know when the next time I will see you guys, so I want to extend this invitation to you guys as well. I figure when we get to heaven, it'll be pretty busy. There'll be a lot of stuff going on for the first week. We'll probably be checking out where we're going, checking out the houses, seeing our new skills with wings and stuff like that. But I figure after the first week, things will probably kind of settle down. I was told of a little get-together, a little shindig, a barbecue we're going to be having under the Tree of Life on the second Tuesday. If you guys want to come, I would love to see you guys there. And you're welcome to bring any of your friends. We're going to have a good time, hang out, talk about what's been going on. But I want to invite all of you guys, class of 2004, friends, family, congregation. You guys are welcome to come, and I'd like to see you guys there. Let's close with prayer. Dear Father, here is where the road divides. Here is where we realize the purpose of your great design. I pray that you'll be with the class of 2004. I pray that you'll watch over them and guide them. I do not pray that you make their lives easy, for as a butterfly must struggle to get from the cocoon, that's what gives it the strength to fly. I ask that you give the class of 2004 what it takes to be able to fly. And I pray that ultimately, in the end, that they will realize, above all else, that you are there for them and that you are taking them all the way to the end. We ask these things in your name. Amen.